Good morning everyone, my name is Luco. I'll be your service manager on board today. On behalf of the Royal Canada and the entire crew, welcome you on board train 40 en route to Ottawa. We stop at Gilwood, Belleville, Kingston, Fallowfield. Wearing a mask is no longer mandatory on board. However, you always have the option of wearing one, and it remains a practice strongly recommended by the public health authorities to reduce the transmission of the COVID-19. We thank you for your cooperation.